All right. So what is your favorite? What is the importance of community?
So community is, I think, a popular word in our world, although it's loved and it's not necessarily understood. Mm-hmm. And I would like to divide it into authentic and inauthentic community. Mm-hmm. And so as the via negativa of what it's not, I think inauthentic community would be maybe places where I go that are merely based off a common interest. The worst would be maybe common dysfunction, as in like we're broken in the same way, so therefore we're going to kind of build a relationship based off of our dysfunction.
Isn't that like rehab?
No, because that would be something that's speaking to it, as opposed to
okay.
This is like, here's my addiction and this is your addiction, and we'll get together and practice our addiction together.
Right. Don't want that.
Right. So for instance, like say you go to a party atmosphere. I was like, well, there's a communal feeling of wanting to be together, and I'm doing these things with these people. But say it's about getting drunk, or about the next pleasure, or something like that. It was like, well, there is a communal dimension to it, but it is not life-giving, right? And it's on a foundation that is kind of these other things, as opposed to a community that's based off of our humanity. So the human condition is as such that nobody makes themselves. You're not spawned out of somewhere. They didn't dig us up out of the ground like an orc. Like we were born of a mother and a father. That applies to every single human being on the planet. That it's not a replication of another human being, but the union of two results in another human being. So that this coming together, that is man and wife, is a foundation for community, so that God is the author of the family. And as much as we live in a world that wants to kind of redefine family, fundamentally every single human being goes down to, I have a mother and a father, and that's where I came from. And that those three people, by God's created design of how this works, makes a family, and that is the foundation of society. Like that is the smallest unit of society. So that community and my humanity is not separable or optional. It is intrinsic to my humanity. Like I literally could not exist without community, because my conception would not have happened. That gathering of people is my community, and we call it family. Right. I think as Book of Genesis puts it, for this reason, a man leaves mother and father and joins himself to his spouse. Right? There is that I grew in this family, this community, and necessarily I grow to this independence that sends me out in this search for the other, that is to form a new community. So that it's life-giving and it overflows and has an intrinsic mission attached to it. So that being sent, the thing that is in us that puts us on this mission, is really for community. So something I like to point out with campus ministry is us making a community here isn't optional. It's not like, hey, for those who like this Catholic stuff, like, hey, we got a little group you can be a part of, as if it's a common interest group. And it's because we've been taught wrongly what community is. Right. And it's like, oh, well, here's the activities that they do. Well, I'll join in those activities if I want to, or if I find them enjoyable, as opposed to, oh, well, I'll just find another group on campus that is something else that suits my desires. Right. It's like, no, we're trying to take the inauthentic community and impose it on the family that is the church, right? And we're trying to subdivide it, as opposed to, well, if this is my family, if this is my home, well, then the activities that I do in my home are what we do together. So for instance, and I think this is hugely helpful of why community is so important. If I am hanging out with my siblings and my family, who I am, how I act, things going on there, what we do for fun is a whole world in of itself. And then I go and hang out with the people who my parents maybe don't want me to hang out with. And then it's a whole world unto itself. Well, what happened to the identity of the person who went from this world to this world? And it's a schizophrenia, right? I'm making a break from myself and I'm going to jump into this world. And then how I behave and what I do. And not only that, it's like the fostering of my desires, the way that I think, all of these things are going to start being molded by the community that I keep. Right. And so if I'm making this my family, well, I'm going to be molded into the image and likeness of this family that I'm keeping.
You are who you hang around.
It is absolutely proven.
I think that fact that we literally, I never thought about it like that, but we really can't exist without community also points to our absolute need for it as humans, that we literally can't survive without community. And
because of that, you will find it and fill your life with it, either intentionally or unintentionally. It's like if you don't pick who those people are and make a decision where you're going to be, well, you're going to be somewhere. You're not going to be nowhere. And then, well, what group adopts me? What group pulls me into whatever dysfunctional movements that they have going there? That being said, the Catholic Church is we're just as broken as everybody else.
Right.
But our foundation is Jesus, right? Who are we? What are we about? What is the foundation that we're resting on? That I am Jesus because of my baptism. And it's like I can be schizophrenic and break from that for my actions and my understanding and what I do and not representing the body of Christ. But also if I'm spending time in my community that keeps me rooted there, well, what effect is that going to happen on me? My catchphrase I use for this is the holy buddy system. You never find a saint in isolation.
I'm trying to think.
You will not find an exception to that. Imagine if you yourself spent hours with Mother Teresa. What kind of effect would that have on you? Yeah. You would either find her intolerable and need to alienate yourself from her because she's putting pressure on something that needs to be converted in us.
Conscience.
Or you're going to be converted and become like the company you keep.
Yeah. Right? What happens when you hang around Father Justin for 2 years?
Yep. Disciples only got Jesus for 3, so.
This is true. So that you gotta stay 1 more year.
This community is good for me. In a sense, who cares if you like it? Is it good for you? And if we can make that judgment on it, well then investing and spending time there is going to have a cumulative effect. Well, I'm not holy enough, I'm not good enough. Well, they're doing these other things. I don't necessarily know if I do that or fit in. Well, you probably don't. But if you spend time there, something's going to happen. I'd like to point out, there's people who call us higher, and there's people who don't challenge us. For instance, if I'm the holiest person in the room, well, who's going to call me to something holier? Who could challenge me? As long as I'm setting the high water mark, well, it's just you guys get your act together. I'm doing pretty good over here, right? And then I get stuck in my own journey. As opposed to, wow, this person's holier than me, and something more is being asked of me. And then that helps me keep growing in my vocation. As opposed to, well, let me hang out with, well, at least I'm not as bad as the rest of these people, right? But we spend our time with them, and we're going to be very quickly as bad. It's a little horrifying. Please do this with much prudence. But do research on how human trafficking, the sex trade, and pornography recruit. It is literally through the doorway of community, and how they will actively destroy a person to go from, like, I would never do that, to in the throes of it and imprisoned in every way. It is literally the art of making slaves. So a community that sets you free or makes you a slave. It's not optional because it is intrinsic to our humanity. So then pick. It's not like, well, get your act together, then you can join or fit in with this group. Like, there is a place for everybody, because the Catholic Church is the home of every soul God has created.
Who's your favorite saint first, and then what's your favorite saint quote, not necessarily from that saint?
Yep. St. Francis of Assisi. He is my confirmation saint. We've definitely grown over the years together, and like that I have a deeper appreciation and love for him than I did when I picked him as my confirmation saint. A saying on the importance of poverty has always stuck with me, and it's something I think is very helpful, especially in our world today. You ready?
I don't know.
Never own a book.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Never own a book.
Why do you have like 4,000 books right in your office?
It doesn't mean I follow his advice. So St. Francis is a man of contradictions.
He's a cool guy.
Yes, he is. But it starts with never own a book, because as soon as you own a book, well, then you need some bookshelves to put them on.
And then as soon as you have some bookshelves, well, they need to go in a nice room to put them in. And then you need some nice comfy chairs to sit in while you're reading your book. And then you need a light to read the book. You need some lights. Then you need, obviously, your servant to go, and you can say, go fetch me my book, and we'll go get it for you.
So in the teaching on poverty, it's just how one small possession turns into an entire lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like it's not just the one thing, it's all of it comes with it. The detachment, do you own your book, or does your book own you? Yeah. Here's this like awareness of just like the stuff that can start filling my life, and I become the servant of all of the stuff.
Start with getting rid of my J's.
Saint Basil the Great.
Saint Basil.
If you own 2 pairs of shoes, one belongs to you, one belongs to the poor. Take what you need, and the rest belongs to the poor.
Oh, so
and
it's
you,
like 99%.
You are the steward of the poorest possessions. It belongs to them. God gave it to you so that he can use you to give it to them. Never own a book.
Never own a book. Yikes.
Yep.
That just makes me think about how much stuff I actually have that I just like literally, I don't even look at it, you know?
Right?
I'm inspired.
Yes.
Are you sad to leave us? To leave USF forever? Forever!
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
What? What does this mean?
Who's to say forever?
Well, to me it's forever, because it's not like I'm going to be here forever, so...
None of this is forever. Only God's eternal.
Okay, well...
And we'll all be
probably
together
for the rest
in
of our
heaven.
lives.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
But the answer is yes, I'm sad.
We are very sad, but we get Father Kyle, so that wouldn't be possible without Father leaving.
If you have 2 priests, one belongs to you, one belongs to the poor. It's gonna be different. I always like to point out it's either you graduate and leave, or I leave.
So you're just leaving before we leave you.
Yeah, exactly. So
I see.
I'll beat you to the punch. You can't fire me, I quit. And part of it is like I really care for this ministry and the importance of it. It's a rare opportunity in the life of a priest to be able to specialize and focus on a ministry. For instance, the parish is going to be from the womb to the tomb. It's like the whole gamut of the life of a person you minister to. In just like somebody going through pregnancy to burying people is going to be the whole spectrum of life that you go through. And there's beauty in that, and that you're part of every aspect of somebody's life as a priest. But then coming to USF, it's like, okay, well, I get to focus and specialize and invest in this very particular window in the life of a person. I always love what happens during this time of a person's life. So talking about discernment and like it's the time where you start coming into your own of what type of person you're going to be, where you're going to live, what you're going to do, how you're going to practice your faith, the kind of the intellectual questions that people wrestle with. There are two main groups that I love talking to, second graders and college students, because they ask the best questions. And then you get into the people who are just kind of trying to get through or worried about other things, and it's like you don't really get to engage on these like deep, profound things, which I like to talk about. How the truth can awaken somebody to something new. I get a first-hand seat to. Father Kyle will get to experience it, and as all things, it's like I didn't invent it; it was handed to me. I had the privilege of caring for this place for a time, and in my stewardship, I have to hand it on to somebody else.
I would say you really are the father of the community, though, because it's not what it is now until you came here,
Well, it's true.
It was kind of hidden away before you got here.
Yeah, it was a well-kept secret, and that's not the direction we needed to be going. Certainly, I led us in a very different direction than where we've been for the previous 50 years of our history. And every priest is going to kind of leave their mark on the ministry, and it's part of being a father of a community. And in some ways it's like, well, I have strong opinions on this, but I hand it to Father Kyle, and I care for this place and for these people, and I have to trust him and his discernment and his priesthood, and that he's going to love these people as I love them and want them to be loved. And the priest that comes to a ministry is like, you're not just a placeholder, or you're not just punching a time card for a paycheck. You're like, well, how do I lead this community? And never know how long you're going to have at a place either.
No, we wouldn't have ever guessed that you leave only halfway through our time here.
I'm not dying that I know of.
Yeah, it sure felt like it. Are you excited about going to Our Lady of the Rosary or Our Lady of Victory? What was I hearing today?
So Our Lady of the Rosary is the name of the parish, but Our Lady of the Rosary is the more contemporary name for Our Lady of Victory.
Okay.
And Our Lady of Victory goes back to the Battle of Lepanto. Are you familiar? Would you like me to explain that?
Sure.
So there was a...
Didn't even really ask.
During the Muslim expansion that really was going into Spain, naval battles taking over the Mediterranean. A lot of fear and worry about this unstoppable movement that was Islam. Not only just European culture, but also Christianity. So the Pope asked everyone to pray the Rosary and ask our Blessed Mother for her intercession. And essentially, against all odds, battles took place. But particularly the Battle of Lepanto is a naval battle that was one of the instrumental things that stopped and preserved Europe from Muslim expansion. And it was credited to Our Lady of Victory, or Our Lady of the Rosary, who interceded for everyone fighting in that battle.
Oh.
So
you want to be victorious, pray your rosary.
Exactly. So that's why I've been calling Our Lady of Victory. It's Lepanto.
Lepanto. Such a fun word to say.
Lepanto.
Lepanto. Oh man, I'm such a fake Hispanic. It's more of like a hook too. It's like this. Yeah, 1, 2.